Hey, and welcome back to Soaring Profits Live. Today, we're going to talk about an interesting topic. Like I always say to you in all my little personal videos, I really truly mean let's heal our minds, bodies, and souls together. So, today I want to talk to you about vulnerability. And the reason I want to talk to you about vulnerability is because, like I said, I'm a work in progress. I'm constantly trying to improve myself. So I'm seeing a therapist now. I just started. I've had two viewings. They've gone really well. The last one, she said, in order to have a good relationships, have to be more vulnerable, right? That's at the end of the thing. Bye. See you later. And I walked away. Vulnerable. What the heck does vulnerable mean? How, as a man, are you vulnerable? Does that mean that you're supposed to share all your emotions and feelings and talk about, your problems and all that? Who wants to hear a man say that? And in my experience, and it's just my experience, when you share that with females, they tend to look lesser on you. Definitely not as a potential mate. Um, so what do you do with that? Now, my therapist is female, and she's a wonderful woman, and she's very bright, and she has given me a lot of good advice in the two situations. So I just thought it'd be interesting for the two of us because neither one of us are very vulnerable in any way, on a emotional or even like we talk to each other about our problems, but it's to solve them, right?
Right.
So what do you think vulnerability is, Pat? What do you think
Weakness.
you meant by
Weakness.
vulnerability?
Weakness.
Yes.
Weakness. No, it's an interesting thing. I didn't. We didn't have a whole lot of conversation in regards to what we were going to chat about here today. And then when you kind of threw that one, that is something that's a tricky one. What is vulnerability? I think that vulnerability. I would argue that I do probably have a pretty negative connotation around vulnerability. The people
Yes.
people that I look like in my life that are vulnerable are people that I work hard to protect.
Right.
So to facilitate vulnerability willingly, that's a stretch for me. That's
It's
interesting.
it's a tough thing to do. Like my whole life, all my life growing up, my childhood for sure. Uh, it was all taught not to be vulnerable. It was taught to be
Right.
stoic and don't show your emotions and don't get upset and solve problems. And if you had a problem, sure as hell don't share them with people unless it's so you can solve them.
Right.
So to have someone say you have to be more vulnerable if you want to have a closer relate, and I understand what she's saying. I totally do. Like my marriage that I had, I wasn't in any way vulnerable. If I had a problem, I went and I dealt with it. I did not discuss it with her if I didn't have to. If she wasn't involved in the solving process, I didn't discuss it. If I had a problem that I felt wasn't going to be improved by discussing it, like uh, for example, I don't want to go to a party, some sort of party. This is really stupid, but you don't want to go to a party, right? There's a vulnerability to that, to saying I don't want to go and making an issue of it because there's going to be a fight. It's way easier to just go do it, you know, or you want to buy a certain thing, but they don't want to. There's a vulnerability to saying why you want to buy something. I think all of those things on a small level are vulnerability, but then there's also the emotions. Like, if you're depressed, telling another man that you're depressed, could you imagine what that would look like? If I walked up to you tomorrow, Pat, and I said, Pat, you know what? Feeling a little depressed today, man. I don't know what's going on. I'm kind of sad. I'm not sure what's going on, buddy. Like I was crying last night in my bed, and uh, like that's vulnerability.
Yeah.
What do you think? How would you react to something like that?
So I would argue that you and I have a little bit different relationship, and especially doing this sort of thing, that we are
Yes.
open about this stuff.
Yes.
But I'm trying to put that in a connotation. So first of all, if a buddy came up to me and said he had that problem, I I would go into that protecting mode, like that we talked about,
Right.
because that becomes the vulnerable, right?
Right. But what does
I
that guy become to you now is more what I'm saying.
say that. Sorry.
What does that mean? So that guy comes to you as equal, right? Because most
Yeah.
of your friends are equal with you because you know you're equal. But he comes to you and tells you something like that. What does that make him? No, say it, man. I'm trying to be honest here. What does that to another man? What happens in your eyes to him? How do you view him now?
Now he becomes a project that I got to fix.
Right. So lesser.
But yes.
Yeah. No, let's be
So,
honest.
so
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah. So I've had experiences in my life where I've had buddies that were in a bad way, and usually those relationships fall apart. And the reason is that it's hard to go to a friend, confide in them in some sort of capacity that way, and then them not, in my experience, take advantage in some way. And that's where I've had situations that fall apart where you're like, okay, I'm not a babysitter. I'm here for you and whatever I can do, but
Right.
but don't take advantage of my good nature.
Right.
And I've had guys that I've, financially funded. I've had guys that, emotionally I've been there for. I've had all that sort of thing. I had one guy, I had to almost kill him for some money that I lent him. And
I remember that.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was just one experience that I knew you knew about. That's why I bring it up. But that was an experience in which and again, not that I'm trying to put it this way, but that weakness stemmed to become a major problem.
Yeah.
That he then wasn't able to manage post, if you will.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
You get what I mean? Like, there's a problem. I'm coming to you. We're going to work through it. Thank you for your help. The post conversation never happened.
Right.
So it always felt like I was just quarterbacking that, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. It wasn't a team effort to solve the problem.
No.
It was you continually solving the problem. And
Right.
to be matter of fact, I've had a lot of relationships like that where it's just me solving the problem and
Exhausting.
getting back, and you're constantly in that state of you feel bad for them, so you don't kind of want to hammer them and say, hey, I need the money, or I need help too, like I want you to come over and clean out my garage, come do something to help me too.
Yeah.
And they don't. But we're getting a little away from vulnerability. Not totally, but
so that's my definition.
Yeah.
Now, you're going through a process and you're going to identify what that means to you.
Yeah. So vulnerability is emotional, I think, for is what her connotation was. And we were basically talking in relationship to women and stuff like that, like relationships. And how I'm not a vulnerable person. I don't tend to be. I tend to be empathetic, and I tend to be able to share things that have happened, but they're always things I've already resolved, right? I can talk about my past, I can talk about my father, I can talk about my mom, I can talk about my brother,
right.
I can talk about all those things, but I've resolved them, right? But to talk about problems I'm currently going through, that's a tough thing. That's very vulnerable, and it leads you to people seeing you as less than, right?
Yep.
And I don't know what the benefit of that is. Now, I didn't get a chance to ask her. Maybe she has some great answers to that. She did give me some videos to watch, which didn't give me any more information other than if you want to have a strong relationship with someone. Now I'm talking about romantic relationship. You have to be vulnerable, right? You have to be able to share your problems. You have to be able to work together for a common goal. But on the same hand, it's been my experience that when you do that, women tend to not like that, right? I may be wrong. I'm just talking about my experience that if you do that, I don't think you've ever probably done that, so I don't know if you have that in your experience. But
So my experience with vulnerability in relationships is pretty limited because of the women that I choose.
right,
I would argue most of the women that I've dated have been very type alpha type females,
right,
very strong, very independent, very, assertive in a lot of ways.
sure.
So they're as broken as I am. Right?
Emotionally, you mean?
Right.
Which is funny because I've been talking about how most all of the women I've dated, like if you go back to when I was a child, all have issues, all are broken, all have like that thing, that family problem, that financial problem, that something. There's always something in everyone I've dated. They're not alphas, right? They're someone I'm trying to save.
Right.
Right. So it's hard when you're trying to save someone, like you said, when you're trying to save someone, it's hard to be vulnerable to them. Right.
Well, I think like with myself, and like I don't want to, we're not talking skeletons in the closets or anything here.
No.
But watching you is that you can talk with somebody for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, and you'll get to know everything there is to know about them. But you're like planning, hey, I can fix this, I can work on this. This is what you should be doing, right? And you're like a fucking therapist whenever we go out and have a beer.
I know.
Right. And I've had many a night where it's like 3:00 in the morning, you're walking out and you're like, that was great. Like, I really appreciated that, experience with you. And that was great. Kind of like that. And I'm like, and you're like, I just got that woman's life story. I don't ever talk to her again.
Meanwhile, you're, I think, usually like, this had to go.
Right. We gotta go.
There's no way he wants to go.
Yeah, it's time to go.
Yeah. And I'm really sorry I made you cry. If you need anything, please let me know.
Right. Here's my card.
I really think you should do what I said there, and maybe that'll help. No,
but like, I don't think, but that's not.
But for me, it's active listening. I'm not trying to hurt them. I'm not trying to. It's just I have been a counselor since I was 4 years old. I've always, been able to read and see and been empathetic and been able to ferret out or find whatever issue someone's dealing with it and try to help them with it. And it's very hard for me not to, because I want to help people. That's always been my life. So to turn that off sometimes is very hard. Like sometimes, what I should be doing is going, oh, I'm very sorry. And then do you want to grab another drink? Like what I have to not do is do that every time. But so yeah, like most of the women that I have dealt with in my past, majority have had problems, and you can't be vulnerable with that, right? Because then you're both, if you're both crashing or doing poorly, how do you move ahead? How do you solve that? Patrick has left the building.
Oh crap! Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but you're a black dog.
Oh, hang on a second.
I don't know what you're trying to represent there. Is that a new thing? Is that one of the
Black Lives Matter?
Could be that. That was a thing for a while. Yeah. So vulnerability to me is a hard thing to explore and do. I think I understand what it is. I think that, what I would have to do is find someone who is between alpha and broken, and join that in a common goal to move forward with, so that we both can be vulnerable and exchange vulnerability in a way that is healthy, that you can work together in the future. And I think that's probably what she's getting at, that I don't have to solve all the problems of the world, especially not with someone that you're engaged with romantically or whatever.
So and I hate therapists. I love you, but I think therapy is not something that I'm thrilled would want to do or loved ones to do. I know that's my opinion.
I know it's your opinion, and it's also something I'm trying to break you of. But
right. Well, good luck with that.
I'm working on it.
So here's my background with therapists. I've personally never attended one. I have dealt with, through the family courts process, I have done mediation type things, and those were done with counselors and therapists going through that sort of stuff. And almost every single time that we would meet, they would create random fucking problems out of nowhere. And I would be like, how does that have anything to do with what we're doing? And I'm a bit of a firm believer that it's a bit of a job security thing. So I
So
struggle
what
with that.
you're describing, I understand what you're saying. Their job is completely different than helping you. If you go into a therapist and you thought drive it, it's completely different than their job is to evaluate you and the person you're with and the child and what's best for everybody.
No, so that the process was literally just sitting there trying to go through the, like, there was no like CAS. Like, it wasn't like what's best for the kid. It was just these two people put someone in the room and we're gonna hash out the problems, right? Like, it's not monitoring, right? It's not like a crazy situation.
No, I know it wasn't. No, but I'm just saying that their role is different. I was just trying to describe their role. Yeah, I know it wasn't CAS. None of that. It was just
right.
In that conversation, a therapist's role is different. Their job is different.
Yeah, I struggle with it.
So what I'm saying is, if you're seeing a counselor one-on-one, I'm not saying that you need to. I'm just saying that it is helpful to get. I think the profiteers out there would benefit from it. I think everyone would benefit from it, because you get a one-on-one person that you can share, your heart, mind, and soul, and you get, either good feedback or bad feedback from it, and you can have a interesting discussion about, the life that you've lived and the problems that you see. And every time you go in, it could be something different that you're working on, right? But it gives you someone who's safe to have a conversation with, that you don't have to worry about, right?
So, okay, so I'm going to ask you, and this is, kind of a personal question. You don't have to answer. Yeah. You have buddies that would pull a fucking dead horse off you if they needed to do whatever you'd need.
I have buddies that would jump in front of a bullet for him.
I don't know about that. I was thinking just maybe hide a body. That's as far as it goes. I don't know, but I mean that. So
yeah,
the therapy piece for me is that the terminology, and this goes back to the vulnerability piece.
Absolutely.
The terminology usage, I would have to reintroduce a whole process of terminology, because when you use the term vulnerability, the connotation between what that therapist has in mind and what I have in mind are drastically different things.
Right.
And I'm not wrong because of it. Right. So if somebody wants to come and say that, no, you need to be more vulnerable, I go, got it.
But that's just it. That's what I'm telling you. That's not how it works. It's not that they go, you need to be more vulnerable. Now go be vulnerable. It's a discussion.
No, I get it.
We just didn't get to it. So I bring it up and see, maybe the profiteers want to chime in on it and, let us know their thoughts on, what being vulnerable as a man or being vulnerable as a woman. Like, I don't know what it's like to be vulnerable as a woman. I would imagine it's slightly easier, definitely from woman to woman, than it is for vulnerability from man to man, right? I would say that was easier. Maybe not with the younger generation, I don't know, but definitely with my generation, we were taught never.
Yeah, the social construct of around vulnerability in today's society is even more so weakness, in my perspective. Like we talk about like toxic masculinity and we talk about all sorts of things, and I'm just like, I just shake my head at it and go, oh, for a lot of that stuff, I'm kind of okay with it. Like, I don't think that, mansplaining, I don't think is really a thing. I think it's inferring and talking, right? Like
mansplaining is sometimes a thing, buddy. Like, I've seen it go down. But on the same note,
But have you never had somebody tell you something that you don't know anything about?
So I've had both women and men tell me something that I know everything about.
Right. And what did you do? Did you say you're
in a way that they felt was derogatory? Now, I didn't go, oh, you're women's-splaining or anything.
Right.
I just said, dude, this is what you're talking about. This is what it is. This is what you're going at. And this is, and I just took over because I'm not, I don't see it as, you're trying to tell me something I know. You don't know that I know it, and I'm going to inform you that I know it.
Right.
That's the way I deal with those situations. So yeah, no, I get that, but it is a real thing.
No, but that's what I mean. So how you deal with it is what you can control. You can't go around and be like, you're mansplaining, and expect people to stop and go, I give a shit. But fuck you, right? That's the problem. Is that
No.
I focus on things in like what I'm actionable about, right? Like if I can't fix it, I don't care.
Yeah. No, I'm the same. I like fixing things. I'm a big proponent of fixing things. If I see a problem, I want to fix it. I don't want to discuss it. I don't want to talk about it. My kids come to me sometimes to like whine about a problem, and I will say to them often.
But do you know why they do that?
To do that, go to your mom. If you want to talk about solving it, I'm in. I will give you 24 hours of sadness over this, and then let's get to work.
Do you know why they do that?
Why do they do what?
Why do they come to you?
Because I'm their daddy?
No, because you're vulnerable and you sit with them and you do all those things inherently. It's just you don't identify that as vulnerability. You sit there and you go, we're going to work through this. I'm going to listen to you. I'm not going to demand things of you. I'm not going to be assertive. I'm not going to be a hammer at your nail. I'm going to listen to you, and I'm going to be empathetic to your cause, and I'm going to think through this stuff. But see, this is where I'm saying is that you do that naturally. That comes very naturally.
But that's not being vulnerable. That's allowing them to be vulnerable and accepting that. It's different.
No, but you're okay. So they're coming to you because you have an empathy and an understanding of vulnerability, right?
I'm allowing them to be vulnerable to me.
Right.
But I'm not being vulnerable to them. There's a difference.
Do you think you should be ever viewed as vulnerable to your
My children? Never.
Never.
No, it's not a thing.
No. Like, I just went through this. Like, my father passed away from cancer, and my father suffered ungodly, like unbelievably.
It was terrible.
And not a day in his life, through all of the stuff that he did, was he ever like, oh, poor me, or pity me, all that sort of thing. Like, his understanding of his end was, it's what we did for the last 2 years.
It was heroic, man. I was there, I believe it was the day before, maybe not even 24 hours before, and he was laughing, and father came in, and we had a beautiful little
last rites.
I wasn't sure if I should say that, but and it was all about us.
Right.
At no point did I hear him say, I'm in so much pain. At no point did I hear him say anything. It was all about us.
But that's because he's protecting the people that he loves.
Right.
He could have done all that stuff.
Totally.
Right.
Yeah. No, heroic. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Heroic.
So, but that's why I look at it and I go, and maybe this is a terminology problem. Yeah. Because in those moments, the vulnerability, that's baked into the cake. That should be baked into the cake, right? And he didn't want to do that because he looked at that as he goes, when I leave, when I'm gone, the people that are around me are left are the ones that I'm preparing.
Right.
Right. I had a grandfather on my mother's side who begged. When he was dying, he was begging not to die. Right. And it traumatized the whole family.
No doubt.
Right. Yeah. And I remember hearing that after my father had died. He wasn't even aware of it. But like that traumatized that whole family because they didn't have a great relationship with him. And then he was begging, no, don't let me die. I can't die. I'm afraid to die. All that sort of thing.
Yeah.
See, to me, that's vulnerable. That's him being vulnerable. Right. And that left a lasting endemic on the family.
That's what I'm saying.
You don't get to do that.
You don't get to, once you're vulnerable to someone, you don't get to take it back.
No.
The information that you share, once you're vulnerable, they can use against you. They can tell other people. God forbid you get in a relationship with someone, which we both have, and like a couple months down the road, a couple years down the road, they leave. And I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure there's a few exes out there that are still bad mouthing.
Most of them call me on the daily to let me know how much
they call you on the daily. You get the ding every time they go on YouTube to talk about it.
exactly.
No, I'm serious. Like
Hundreds of views, not
that
just
is
tens, hundreds.
hundreds, not tens.
Yeah.
Hundreds.
Yeah.
They use our logo
Right.
here, except my face is slightly different and I'm way fatter.
You have horns.
That's right. Fire shooting out of my hands. No, but that's a scary thing. Like you don't know anything. So at which point you become vulnerable. But anyway, I just thought it was an interesting thing to talk about since we're both guys that aren't vulnerable.
No.
I am great. You're absolutely right. I'm great with people being vulnerable to me, and I accept it. And I, you and I are different. You and Craig and I, we're different. We've helped each other through a lot of turmoil, a lot of darkness because we've seen a lot. Not the same thing, but to the average person, I have no desire to be vulnerable to.
I would argue that the average person couldn't keep up.
Oh, are you kidding?
The crazy that we've dealt with over the years, the average person couldn't do it.
No,
I mean it.
No, they would just be.
Yeah. The average person couldn't keep up and do what we do. So
No.
there's kind of a brotherhood in battle, if you will, when you go through that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And to me, that's not vulnerable. And I understand why a therapist would argue and say about vulnerability, how important it is. I'm at a stage in my life that if I'm okay with protecting my people. If I was 22, 23, 24 years old and I'm trying to find the love of my life and that's where it is and, we're building together, I get it.
Right.
At my point in 35, I'm building for mine and my own.
Right.
You at 35 years old, if you aren't building too, we don't have a lot in common.
No, exactly. You got to be moving forward.
That's it.
Trying to make a better life for the people that you're trying to protect.
So that's as vulnerable as I'll be.
Right. I get that.
That's it.
And to be honest, that's how I feel.
Right.
I'm 52. I'm still but I'm on a build too. Like I am on a place where I got to keep working, keep striving, keep doing. I don't have time to wallow or be sad or when I have a problem, I fix it.
Right.
I don't have time for that. But it was just an interesting thing because eventually I would like a relationship again, I guess. But it wasn't.
I think you'll find a lovely gentleman.
Interesting conversation. Yeah, like someone very pretty and handsome.
Caring.
I am not gay.
Big hands. Oh, look at this, by the way.
It's okay if you
How
are.
hard I work. I don't know if you can really tell here. I've got a huge blister on the palm of my hand.
Yeah.
And then up here as well from cutting wood.
Is that what it's from? Is that your right hand?
One. When you run out of Jergens, things get shaky. See, I'm vulnerable with you one time.
I think we should stop there.
One time I'm vulnerable with you.
One time, and I throw it out there for the tens of profiteers all to hear.
That's right.
Yeah, if they didn't know that already.
That I masturbate?
What were you doing, raking or something?
No, I was cutting wood in the backyard for fire.
Wow. Good for you.
No.
That was Scotch night.
Oh.
That was Scotch night, wasn't it?
That was Scotch night. Yeah, you left me. See, here I am being vulnerable. Come on over, man. Have a Scotch.
I got a fire.
Yeah. What are you doing?
I'm going downtown to the bar.
Right. Thanks, buddy. Hell of a guy. Well, folks,
right.
You guys will be seeing this on Tuesday morning. Thank you so much for joining us, as always. A little, like James always talks about, a little window into our heart and soul.
Yep.
I'm sorry that mine is a dark cave. Good luck. And James,
Mine's
as always, buddy.
But you get to peek in once in a while and see what's going on. And like I say, I truly am and truly mean, let's heal our minds, bodies, and souls together.
Yeah.
It's the daily work in progress. And I'm working on this, guy. Don't you worry. One day
Good
we'll
luck. Good luck. I wish you all the best. But as always, folks, let's make some money together. We'll chat again real soon. Have a good day.